If this doesn't work, then I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyhow, you don't need to know all that. Okay. So slavery among the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Okay. So not of Africa, not the indigenous black racial groups, you know, nothing like that. This is slavery among the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Okay. Now, this is Wikipedia or Wikipedia, whatever you call it. In this section, for Mexico, New Mexico, California, Utah, Colorado, relies largely or entirely on a single source. Okay, so this says the lead section of this article may need to be rewritten. Okay, so again, who writes this stuff, who brings it up, I don't know. But we're just going to go ahead and look at it and read it. Slavery amongst the indigenous peoples of North and South America took many forms. Again, took many forms, right? So, after the English settlers arrived, 5 tribes came to own black slaves, imitating the Europeans. Let's see something. What is this? January 1974, Red Indians, Black Slavery, and White Racism, America's Slave Holding Indians. Okay. So anyhow, let's see. So when we say this right here, after the English settlers arrived, okay, why wouldn't it say the European settlers? Because we're going to be talking about Europeans. So after the English settlers, not the pilgrims, not, these are the settlers, okay? So I'm thinking the settlers came, I know we're in early times here, but I'm thinking the settlers came before the pilgrims actually did, if I'm not mistaken. But again, it's very important to dissect these things and put them in their proper time frame, okay? So that's something that I maybe should do. So after the English settlers arrived, 5 tribes came to own black slaves. Now, 5 tribes of what? See, after the English settlers arrived, 5 tribes came to own black slaves. Now, what does this mean? Okay. Who are the tribes? We know that the so-called tribes, some of these were put together by foreigners. Okay. So is it 5 tribes of English settlers? Or what kind of tribes? It doesn't say North American Indians tribes or Indian tribes or any kind of tribes. Okay. And black, we know that black means pale or bleach, things like this. Okay, excuse me. Once you start doing the etymology on it, sounds very strange what you're reading there. Slaves. Okay. Again, these slaves wouldn't have any standing, right? You know what? Stuff like this always brings me back to the pharaohs and how they had God's people. And now we know that, how I do the historical, biblical correlations or whatever on this channel. So it's funny how Moses let the people out of slavery, part of the Red Sea, all this other shit or whatever he did to free the people. But now we're finding out that it may not have been the people that we think that he was freeing when it came to freeing people when he did supposedly free people, right? So that may have been freeing European or foreign or alien immigrant people from a form of slavery. Now, who was that slavery under? Was it under the government or was it under Aboriginal peoples that were still holding so-called slaves, that were tucked into pockets of the Americas that, again, they won't write about this and they won't tell you about this, but we just have to look into this, to start looking at dates and things like that to see if this is something that could have been done. Because we do know that they said, oh, Native Americans or Indians brought so-called white people in, they kidnapped white people and stuff like this. So again, who would have been the pharaohs if we know that there was a form of Nubia, a form of so-called ancient Egypt in America? Who would be the ones that would have been enslaved, that a God would be ordering to free, and they were actually free and given the pursuit of happiness and all this other things that, again, you haven't been given because you're not a part of that. And the Bible is telling you right in front of your face. You just don't know how to read the Bible exactly. because you're not using other tools in order to identify what you're reading and you think you know. It's all of us. We're all guilty of it. I don't know everything, but I know some of these damn things, and that's what it's just going to be for me. Okay? So, again, who were these slaves? But let's just keep reading. This is the variations that go on when I'm thinking this. Okay? So, after that, so-called rednecks or lower class or Slavic white slave people that were brought in from different places were given your land that they took from your ancestors and things like this in order to thrive. Okay? Even Martin Luther King spoke about how they gave them the land and taught them how to farm and all this other shit because that was the land, again, that they have taken from you. Okay? They've taken your standing by 1828 and given it to them and turned you into the so-called black